Their marriage had seen its share of struggles, but when they bought a house in a new city, Ryan thought it was a fresh start. A new home, a new beginning. He didn't know that Julia had other plans. The house was everything they had wanted. Spacious, modern, beautiful. A large backyard for future kids. A place to finally settle down. Can you believe it? Ryan said, standing in the living room of their new home, hands on his hips. This is ours. Julia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. If Ryan had been paying closer attention, he might have noticed. But he was too busy making plans. The move wasn't going to be easy. Ryan had taken time off work to oversee the transition. Packing, organizing, driving back and forth to get everything settled. Julia, on the other hand, had insisted on staying behind at their old house to handle the final paperwork and wrap up loose ends. It'll be easier this way, she had said. I'll join you as soon as I finish up here. Ryan had kissed her and trusted her completely. He didn't know that the moment he drove away, Julia was already making arrangements of her own. Julia had always been good at attracting attention. She was elegant, charming, and carried herself with confidence. Even after she quit her job as a paralegal to pursue personal projects, she stayed connected to the legal world. And that was how she met Ethan Wallace. He was everything Ryan wasn't. A high-profile lawyer with money, status, and a reputation for getting what he wanted. And right now, he wanted Julia. It started with small things. A business dinner that wasn't business. A meeting about legal documents that turned into late-night drinks. Julia told herself she was just enjoying the attention. But soon, it became something more. And the moment Ryan left town to handle the move, she stopped resisting. That first night, Julia met Ethan in a dimly lit hotel bar. The tension had been building for weeks, and neither of them fought it anymore. When she woke up in his hotel suite, tangled in sheets that weren't her own, she knew there was no undoing what she had done. She should have felt guilt, but instead, she felt alive. Ryan spent the next few days moving their life. Packing, lifting, driving, unpacking. He wanted everything to be perfect for when Julia arrived. But something felt off. Their phone calls were shorter. Julia seemed distracted, impatient. Ryan, how's everything back home? Julia, busy. Just trying to get everything finalized. Ryan, you okay? You sound different. Julia, just tired. She used to miss him. Now, it felt like she couldn't wait to hang up. Ryan brushed it off. He was exhausted from the move. Maybe she was too. What he didn't know. While he was breaking his back getting everything ready, Julia was spending her nights in Ethan's bed. On the 5th day, Ryan received a text. Unknown number. Your wife is not who you think she is. Ryan's heart pounded. Ryan, who is this? Unknown number. Come back home. Tonight. His breath caught in his throat. Was this some kind of joke? Or was his worst fear about to become reality? Ryan clenched his jaw, throwing his bag into his truck. There was only one way to find out. And he was about to learn a truth that would destroy everything. Got it. I'll add more unexpected twists, deeper betrayals, and shocking revelations while keeping the tension high. Here's part 2, where Ryan discovers the horrifying truth. But things aren't as simple as they seem. Ryan's hands gripped the wheel as he sped back toward their old house, his pulse pounding in his ears. The unknown message played over and over in his mind. Your wife is not who you think she is. The words felt like a knife, twisting deeper with every mile. Had Julia really done it? Had she betrayed him while he was moving their entire life to a new city? Every logical part of him wanted to believe this was some sick joke, a misunderstanding. But deep down, he knew. And he wasn't ready for what he was about to walk into. Ryan pulled into the driveway, cutting the engine. The house was dark, except for the faint glow of a lamp in the living room. His stomach churned. If Julia was alone, why did this feel so wrong? Taking a deep breath, he stepped out of the truck. And then, he saw it. Another car. A sleek, black Mercedes parked down the street. His heart dropped. Because he knew that car. He had seen it before. It belonged to Ethan Wallace. Ryan didn't knock. He shoved open the door, his body moving on instinct. And what he saw destroyed him. Julia sat on the couch, her silk robe slightly open, a half-finished glass of wine in her hand. And sitting right beside her? Ethan. Not even trying to look guilty. Not moving. Just sitting there. As if he belonged. Ryan's world tilted. His wife. His home. The life he had been building. All a lie. Julia's eyes went wide when she saw Ryan. Ryan, she started, but her voice broke. Ethan? He just smirked. Smirked. As if none of this mattered. Ryan's fists clenched. You have 5 seconds to get the hell out of my house. Ethan didn't even flinch. Relax, he said, taking a slow sip of his drink. Let's be adults about this. Ryan saw red. Before he could think, his fist collided with Ethan's face. Ethan stumbled back, blood dripping from his lip. Julia screamed. Ryan, stop. But Ryan didn't care. He grabbed Ethan by the collar, shoving him against the wall. You think this is a joke? Ryan growled. You think you can just? Ethan laughed. Through split lips and blood, he laughed. And then he said something that made Ryan's blood run cold. You have no idea what's really going on. Ryan felt his grip loosen. Something in Ethan's tone. Something was off. He turned to Julia. Her face had gone pale. Her hands were shaking. And that's when Ryan realized. Ethan didn't know everything either. This wasn't just an affair. There was something else. And Julia had been lying to both of them. Like the video to support Ryan. Ryan wasn't done. Not yet. His eyes darted across the room, landing on something half-hidden under the coffee table. An envelope. His name was written on it. Ryan. Julia lunged for it. Don't. But Ryan was faster. He grabbed the envelope and tore it open. And what he found inside made his stomach drop. Ryan's hands trembled as he pulled out a contract. Not just any contract. A divorce settlement. Already signed. By Julia. Dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. Before they even bought the new house. Before he started packing their life away. Before he had any clue. Ryan's breath hitched. You! He looked at Julia, his voice shaking with fury. You were planning to leave me? Julia sobbed. Ryan, it's not what you think. Bullshit. His voice echoed through the house. Ethan, now wiping blood from his mouth, looked just as shocked. You told me this was just starting, Ethan said slowly, turning to Julia. You said you were still figuring things out. Julia's face crumpled. Because they had both been played. Ryan took a slow, shaky breath. You were never planning to move to the new house, he said, his voice eerily calm. Julia didn't answer. You were just waiting, Ryan continued. Letting me do all the work, move our entire life. His throat closed. Julia had let him do all of it, knowing she had already signed the papers, knowing she was already gone. Ryan's vision blurred. And you still let me say I loved you. Julia broke down. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't know how to tell you. Ryan's hands curled into fists. Liar. Ethan stepped back, shaking his head. I didn't know about this. Ryan didn't care. He had heard enough. Turning to Julia, he took one last, hard look at her. The woman he had loved. The woman who had lied to him. The woman who had planned to leave him long before she ever got caught. Ryan exhaled sharply. And then, with absolute finality, he whispered, You deserve everything that's coming. Then, without another word, he walked out. Julia collapsed to the floor. And Ethan? For the first time, he looked scared. Because something about Ryan's tone wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Part 3. The Price of Betrayal. Ryan drove through the city in silence. His hands gripped the wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His mind was no longer clouded by grief or heartbreak. That was gone. All that was left was rage. Julia had planned this for weeks. She had used him, let him break his back, move their life, while she was sneaking around, laughing behind his back. And Ethan? That smug, self-satisfied bastard? He thought he won. But neither of them knew what was coming. Ryan wasn't just going to walk away. He was going to take everything from Julia. Step 1. Destroying her financial security. Julia had always loved control. She was calculated, always planning ahead. That's why she had signed the divorce papers weeks ago. She had probably assumed that once Ryan moved everything, she could walk away clean. Maybe even get half of what was his. But Ryan wasn't going to let that happen. He pulled up his laptop and logged into their joint bank accounts. They had two main accounts, one for shared expenses and one where Julia had been saving money for emergencies. Within minutes, that emergency fund was empty. Ryan transferred everything to his own private account. Then, he opened their mortgage file for the new house. Click. House purchase. Canceled. Julia wasn't moving into a beautiful new home. She was moving into nothing. Next, he called his lawyer. "I need to make sure my wife gets nothing in this divorce," Ryan said coolly. "No assets, no money. I want her to suffer." The lawyer hesitated. "That depends on what leverage you have." Ryan smirked. "Oh, I have plenty." Step 2. Destroying her reputation. Julia loved her image. She had spent years crafting the perfect persona. Charming, intelligent, well-respected. But what happens when people find out the truth? Ryan started with her family. He called her older sister, Claire. "Ryan?" Claire sounded surprised. "What's wrong?" "Ask Julia," he said. "Ask her how long she's been screwing Ethan Wallace behind my back." A stunned silence. "What?" "She signed divorce papers 3 weeks ago and didn't tell me. She was waiting for the right moment to walk away with half my money. But she's not getting a damn cent." Claire exhaled sharply. "That's selfish, lying. I just thought you should know what kind of person she really is." Ryan hung up. Step 1. Complete. Next. They're mutual friends. Ryan texted a group chat with people they had known for years. "Ryan, hey everyone. Just a heads up, Julia and I are done. Turns out she was screwing our lawyer while I was moving our entire life to a new city." Reactions poured in. Friend 1. "Holy shit, Julia?" Friend 2. "Wait, what?" Friend 3. "I knew something was off with her lately." By the time Julia realized what was happening, it was too late. Her phone blew up with messages. Calls from her sister, former friends, and even her boss. Her perfect image? Shattered. Step 3. Make her regret everything. Julia called him nonstop that night. Ryan didn't answer. The next morning, she showed up at his apartment. "Ryan, please, let me explain," she begged, her face streaked with tears. Ryan leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Explain what? That you planned to leave me long before you got caught?" Julia's lip trembled. "I wasn't going to go through with it." Ryan laughed. "Really? That's your excuse?" She sobbed. "I don't want to lose you." Ryan's expression turned ice cold. "You lost me the second you crawled into his bed." Julia collapsed. "I have nothing left," she whispered. Ryan tilted his head. "Good." Then, he shut the door in her face. And this time, it stayed shut. Step 4. Ethan's consequences. Ryan wasn't done. Ethan had played his part. And now, he was going to pay. Ryan did some digging. And what he found was even worse than he expected. Ryan didn't feel regret. Not for taking all the money. Not for exposing Julia to her family and friends. Not for shutting the door in her face when she had begged him for another chance. She had planned to leave him broken. Instead, she was the one left with nothing. At first, Julia tried to fight back. She tried calling mutual friends, spinning the story, saying Ryan was overreacting or making things seem worse than they were. But it didn't work. No one believed her. Ryan had already made sure of that. Her own sister, Claire, refused to speak to her. Her family? They were ashamed. Her friends? Gone. Julia had spent years crafting the perfect image. Now, it was completely destroyed. And that was only the beginning. Julia still had one hope left. The divorce settlement. She had signed the papers weeks ago, expecting to walk away with half of everything. But Ryan had made sure she got nothing. When she met with her lawyer, her stomach dropped as she saw the revised terms. "Ryan has filed for sole ownership of the assets," her lawyer explained. "Given the circumstances, his financial contributions, your infidelity, he has a strong case." Julia's throat tightened. "But I was supposed to get half?" Her lawyer sighed. "That's not going to happen." Julia felt sick. Ryan had made sure she wouldn't see a dime. And then came the final blow. "I should also mention," the lawyer added, flipping through the papers, "he's removing you from the mortgage." Julia's blood ran cold. That meant, that's his house now, the lawyer confirmed. Not yours. Her future? Gone. She had assumed she'd have a new home, a fresh start. Now, she had nowhere to go. Out of desperation, Julia called Ryan. Ryan, what do you want? Julia, please, don't do this. Ryan, you did this to yourself. Julia, I have nowhere to go. Ryan paused. For a moment, Julia thought he might soften. Then, his voice turned ice cold. Ryan, figure it out. And with that, he hung up. Julia broke down, sobbing into her hands. She had played the game, and she had lost. With no money, no house, and no friends left, Julia had only one person left to turn to. Ethan, the man she had risked everything for. The man who had helped her destroy her marriage. Maybe, just maybe, he could save her. But when she called him, he didn't answer. She tried again, and again. Finally, after the fifth call, he picked up. Ethan, what do you want, Julia? His tone was cold, annoyed. Julia's breath hitched. I need your help. Ethan sighed. What kind of help? Julia's voice shook. I have nowhere to go. A long silence. Then, Ethan laughed. It wasn't kind. It wasn't amused. It was cruel. You actually thought I'd take you in? Ethan scoffed. That's adorable. Julia felt the world collapse. Ethan. Look, Julia. Ethan cut her off, his voice sharp, impatient. This was fun while it lasted, but I don't do long-term problems. Her stomach twisted. I gave up everything for you. Ethan sighed. Yeah, that was dumb. And then, he hung up. Julia sat alone in her car for hours. Her face was blank. Her hands shook. She had destroyed her marriage, lost her money, lost her friends, her family. And now, even Ethan didn't want her. She had thrown away everything for a man who had never cared. She had ruined her own life. And Ryan? He had one. While Julia spiraled, Ryan rebuilt. He moved into the dream home, the one that was supposed to be theirs. But now, it was his. He focused on himself, worked out, traveled, reconnected with real friends. And one day, he met someone new. Lauren. She wasn't just beautiful. She was kind, genuine, the complete opposite of Julia. And this time, Ryan took his time. Because now, he knew what real love looked like. And Julia? She was nothing but a lesson learned. Months later, Julia tried one last time to reach Ryan. She showed up at his doorstep, looking hollow. Ryan opened the door, arms crossed. Ryan, Julia's voice was barely a whisper. His expression was unreadable. What do you want? Her lip trembled. I made a mistake. Ryan nodded. You did. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I miss you. Ryan exhaled slowly, his voice calm. You don't miss me. You miss the life you had. She sobbed. Please, can't we try again? Ryan studied her for a long moment, and then, with a slow shake of his head, he whispered, No. Julia broke. Ryan didn't care. He closed the door, and this time, it stayed shut. Forever. Ryan walked away stronger. Julia was left with nothing. Ethan moved on like she never mattered. She thought she could control everything. Instead, she destroyed herself. And Ryan? He was finally free. Thank you for listening to the story to the end. Please like, share your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel.